In 1953, Harley Earl designed a car for General Motors that would change the meaning of a sports car. The name of the car is a Corvette, which was given by the name of Myron Scott. He named the Corvette after the small maneuverable warship. It has been produced in 6 generations in 4 different body styles. The body styles are the coupe, the convertible, the T-top, and the target top. In 2003, the Corvette celebrated its 50th anniversary as America's first true sports car. The generations are as follows. C1 was built in 1953 and was produced until 1962. The C2 was introduced in 1963 as the Stingray. This generation had a different split rear window, hidden headlights, non-functional hood vents, and independent rear suspension. A 1963 Corvette had 360 horsepower and was increased in 64 with 375 horsepower. The 67 was the last year for the second generation. The C3, which is the third generation, was introduced in 1968 and lasted through 1982. It was the longest running generation of Corvettes, which lasted 15 years. This generation had the most horsepower for the motor, 550 horsepower, and only 2 were produced with this engine. It was later equipped with a stock 425 V8. In 1974, it was mandated that cars have catalytic converters, and this was bad for the Corvettes. It plummeted the horsepower tremendously. In 1983, the C4 was produced. It lasted until 1996. This generation was completely redesigned except for the motor. The main component that is still used today in the new Corvettes is the front transverse composite leaf spring suspension. When it first came out, it made the Corvettes ride really, really rough, but later through the years they've compromised it and made it ride real smooth. The C5 generation was produced in 1997 and lasted until 2004. This was one of the best Corvettes produced because it changed all the aspects of the Corvettes. It had a top speed of 171 miles an hour. This generation started the LS motors. It was rated at 345 horsepower, which was increased to 350 horsepower. This was the most fuel-efficient sports car ever made, and to this day is still about the most efficient car ever made. It gets about 28 miles on the highway and about 17 miles in town. This generation introduced the Z06 model, which had a base 385 horsepower LS1 motor. It was upgraded to 405 horsepower. The C6 generation, to me, which is the last generation, is one of the best looking generations. It has a 6-liter LS2 motor, which has a stock 400 horsepower. It will go 0 to 60 in less than 4.2 seconds. In 2006, the C6 was equipped with an LS7, which was a 7-liter V8, which has 505 horsepower. It has a top speed of 198 miles an hour, and was put only in the Z06 model. In 2008, the C6 was introduced with what is now a 6.2-liter, 438 horsepower V8, which is the stock motor for most Corvettes nowadays. The fastest Corvette was produced in 2007 and manufactured to sell in 2008 was the new ZR1 model, which has an astonishing 638 horsepower. It is by far the fastest Corvette ever made, and I would love to have one. That is pretty much all I could say about a Corvette. And they say they won't produce a new generation until 2012, but all I can say is that they have some pretty big shoes to fill.